Well, hey, and welcome to another video. So today I want to talk about something that I don't hear discussed very often, and that is how to play more consistently when playing guitar live. So this is a topic that I've been thinking about making a video on for a while now, and I've been thinking about how to kind of break it down into some actionable tips. And it's a very abstract topic because obviously some people can play very consistently live and other people not so much. And I have been a person that's kind of struggled with my consistency of my playing for a long time, and there's a variety of factors that I think contribute to that. And when you see me playing live today, it's very common that I'll get remarks that, oh, you look so natural up there and it looks like you're very comfortable, and it's taken me a long time to kind of get to that aspect and get to that point in my playing, because I think for a lot of people you get in your head and your playing suffers as a result. So my hope with this video is that I can give you some tips that will help you be more consistent when playing live. So let's get into it. Okay, so tip number one is really basic. Just practice more. Practice lots. Practice exactly what you're going to play on stage. And it seems kind of like a tip that goes without saying, but it's really important. And there's a couple of tips within that I'd like to give you. And first off is practicing with a metronome. So if you're learning a song and you're going to play that song live with your band, that's fantastic. A way that a person might practice that would be by putting on the track and just playing guitar to it, playing the solo as the guitar player plays his solo on the track. And that's great, but I think there's another level to go with that, and that is just simply finding the tempo of the song, whether you're looking it up or whether you're just tapping it into a metronome yourself, and practicing that without any accompaniment. And that will do a couple of things for you. That will really allow you to tune in to just your playing and how you're phrasing certain things. And it will also be a very vulnerable type of practice session for you, because you won't be able to rely on how good the guy on the track sounds. You'll have to just basically be faced with your playing and the metronome. So within that, the best way that I've found to do this is to record myself just on the computer, and I'll play the solo with the guitar from the band in the track, and then I will mute the track and just listen to my playing, and I'll listen to it back, and then I'll practice it with just the metronome. So I'm learning to play in time, and I'm also able to evaluate my tone and how I'm attacking each note and each phrase from a very objective standpoint by, recording it and listening to it back. The next tip I have, I'm going to circle back to, but it's something that a guy named Ross Campbell, who, if you have not heard of him or seen his channel, please go and check it out on YouTube. He's a fantastic player, and I attribute a lot of my theoretical knowledge to his courses, so go check out Ross Campbell. But he had a tip a little while ago that he talked about, and it's kind of related to being more consistent with your playing, and that is paying attention to your breathing. So I think it goes without saying that a lot of players, when they get nervous on stage and stuff, their body starts to tense up and they start to grip the guitar in weird ways, and their hands kind of turn to mittens. You're playing with gloves on, so it sounds like you're clamming all over the place. But breathing before you go into a fast passage or a part where you kind of are going to stand out for a little bit, like a solo, something like that, is very important. So you're literally thinking about, okay, I'm going to breathe, and you're kind of calming down your central nervous system, because the breath is allowing your body to relax, and that's going to, in effect, relax your hands and your arms and your shoulders as well, because as we tense up, we tend to bring our shoulders up a little bit, and those positions and those points of tension in our body don't contribute to playing the guitar well. So what I practice before I go into a solo, when I'm practicing at home, and then obviously I do this on stage as well, is I take 2 deep breaths just like I did just now, and I really think about, okay, just relax, you know how this solo goes, and then you start into it. So I find I almost have to trick my mind into relaxing, because I get excited, and maybe there's a lot of things happening on stage and the lights are great and there's lots of people, or maybe there's no one and it's an empty bar and you're like, wow, if I clam up here it's going to be super noticeable. So breathing is way more important than you might think, but that is one way that I find can really physically relax my body before going into a solo. Alright, so another tip I have here is basically it comes down to your equipment. So there's nothing worse than watching a guitar player having equipment malfunction, and that becomes what he's doing on stage when his job is to play the music. So guitar players obviously have this incessant need to tweak things, and if something doesn't sound just right, they want to fix it right now. And that can obviously be detrimental to your playing if you're having this tunnel vision on a problem that probably no one else except yourself, or maybe you and your bandmates notice. It's going to become very noticeable when you play inconsistently or you miss things in the song because you're focusing on a problem that is not very applicable or relevant in a certain situation. Your job as a guitar player is to play the guitar, play the music how it was intended to be played, or your interpretation of that, whatever you would like to do. But because your equipment is allowing you to express that, it's important obviously to have your equipment in top shape so you're not having a problem on stage that you're fixating on and it is then detracting from your playing. So a couple of things, obviously change your strings regularly. I change my strings after every 2 or 3 gigs depending on how far apart the gigs are, and I find that works for me. If you find you break strings often, you really need to look at your technique. You need to look at your picking hand and why you're attacking the strings in such a way, because if your guitar is set up properly and there's no issues with the saddles or the nut or anything like that, you should not be breaking strings. And it's very uncommon to see a professional guitar player to break a string on stage live. Usually it just doesn't happen because the technique is there. So if you find something like that is happening, you're breaking strings, and you know for a fact that your guitar is in good shape, in good condition, it's been tuned up recently, you really need to look at your technique, your picking hand, and see if you're putting extra pressure on the strings that is unnecessary and is literally causing them to break. If you're a really heavy-handed strummer or something like that, you need to look at that and maybe use a softer pick or adjust your playing so that you're not breaking the strings all the time. So it goes hand in hand with your pedals too. If you have a pedal board that's covered in dirt, you haven't cleaned it in a while, you've got dirty pots, you've got whatever else, it's something that needs to be addressed before you go and play, because it's going to lead to issues and it's going to make your playing suffer as a result, because you're going to worry about, oh, I went into my solo and turned on my drive pedal and all my sound dropped out. Well, it's because you have a bad cable and you've got to address stuff like that. So testing your gear regularly. If you don't use the same gear to rehearse and perform live, then test your gear once a week or at least before the gig and make sure that it's ready to go. It's it's stuff that isn't talked about, but it's kind of the whole like pro guitar player, pro show type of ordeal. You need to have your gear ready to go. It needs to be serviceable, because if your playing suffers as a result of your gear being bad, that's going to reflect poorly on you. Okay, so I said I would circle back to this point, and that is about your physical being and the playing environment in which you're playing in. So it's pretty uncommon for someone to be able to practice where they're going to perform. If you have that luxury, then good on you, but for me it looks a lot like this, and then it looks a lot like this. So very different environments and very different atmospheres. The breathing thing that I was talking about earlier kind of lends itself into practicing like you're going to perform. So if you're going to be wearing like a denim jacket or something on stage, and you don't usually play with a denim jacket, like I'm wearing a sweater right now, it might be beneficial to literally put on that jacket and play guitar in that jacket. And obviously if you do a lot of practicing sitting down, stand up when you practice. Play the parts that you're going to play while standing, because you're probably going to be standing when you're playing live. The mechanics of the body change when you play standing up versus sitting down, so you need to look at that. And with that comes the height of your guitar and your strap position. So when you're sitting down and you're standing up, you basically want your strap to facilitate the same guitar position whether you're doing one or the other. So the guitar has to be high enough that you feel like your arms are about and your hands are about at the same position as when you're sitting down. Now for me recently, one thing I've done to adjust my playing is to move my strap so that my guitar is higher up on my body. Now obviously some guys take this to the extreme and they call it kind of nipple riding when it's way up here. Figuring out what strap position is going to work for you is paramount in getting your body relaxed when playing on stage. Okay, so you've been practicing a little bit standing up, you've played all your parts standing up, and you have practiced some breathing. Now, there's still that mental component that I find myself very vulnerable to, and that is just getting in your own head. And you know, when you're playing at home and you're relaxed and everything is good and you sound great and all this, it changes so much when you go to a live position and a live venue because there's so many different variables. And people are watching you and it's intimidating, and you need to just get out of your own head so you can get out of your own way and play. And for myself, the overlying thing that has helped me has been doing breathing exercises before the gig and then doing those couple of breaths just before I go into a solo. And as the night progresses, I find myself relaxing and I don't have to focus on doing that so much. But for the first few songs, maybe even the first set, I'm really focusing on, okay, I'm going into a solo here, I'm going to take a couple of deep breaths, and I know how to play this. So you're armoring your mind, you're preparing yourself to go into this solo, even if you've played it, you know, thousands of times. You're literally thinking about, okay, I know how to play this, I'm confident, I'm going to do fine. Breathe, begin. It's something that I feel is not really addressed, and it's very abstract because it's different for every person. For myself, I feel a lot of times I'm a victim of imposter syndrome because I just, I get in my head and I think, oh man, I shouldn't be here. But that kind of negative self-talk is so detrimental to your playing and so detrimental to your personality. And you're trying to exude confidence on stage and show everyone, yeah, I can play these parts, and you do a great job. But if you are standing in your own way, you're never going to be able to relax to the point where you're going to play as effortlessly as you do when you're at home. So really try to drill down and think about being confident and getting out of your own way by using those tips. And the last thing I want to talk about is kind of gear related, and that is if you have a bunch of different guitars that you switch between, I find it really beneficial to play the same guitar as you're going to be playing when you're playing live. And it sounds silly, but hear me out for a minute. So I'm used to playing Telecaster style guitars, and if I switch to playing a Strat or something like that, I find the necks are obviously a little bit different, and that impacts my playing. And while it can be a fun challenge to switch between instruments and get different sounds and stuff like that, if you're going for being as consistent as possible, you're going to want to stick to the same guitar that you're practicing with and playing with live. It's going to be one less variable. I find this whole kind of mental side of it is just an elimination of as many variables that you can control as possible. You're not going to be able to control the venue very much or very often, if there's a fog machine or something like that and that is hampering your vocals or something like that. You can't really control that as much, but you're trying to control the controllables and really aim to eliminate as many points that you can that are going to impact your playing, and obviously getting out of your own head, which is easier said than done. So I hope that video has kind of given you some basic tips on how to be a little bit more consistent when playing live. It's something that I struggle with, and I work on all the time, and it's kind of a fun thing for me now because I can feel when there's tension in my body and how I need to relax in order to facilitate being my best at every gig and portraying the professionalism that professional guitars need to strive for all the time. So if you got something from this video, please subscribe to the channel and leave me a comment down below. I just broke 1,000 subscribers, so thank you very much for watching my videos and commenting and leaving great feedback. I'm always trying to improve on these videos, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.